while dealing with the occasional setback. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. In folk dances of many countries in Eastern and Southeastern Europe, the rhythm is of 3 to 1, in a motion that is punctuated rather than a smooth glide. While the rhythm is supposed to be regular, the outcome often looks asymmetrical. But symmetry is not the main aim. The purpose of the procession is one of community bonding, of energy and elasticity, of momentum rather than standstill. And so too ebbs and flows the EU enlargement process, but with each partner joining and moving through the rows at their own speed. Sometimes candidates chime and synchronize. At other times they bounce in a polyphonic manner or completely out of sync. Today's dynamic is largely driven by the geopolitical context, including Europe's efforts to have its voice heard and its interests served in the US-mediated peace process aimed at ending Russia's war in Ukraine. Although the prospects for a genuine and just peace this year look uncertain, the introduction of the idea of an ultra-fast accession of Ukraine in 2027, or soon afterwards, as part of that peace formula, has sparked thinking in the European Commission and outside on how this might be achieved. Can the merits-based approach keep up with the geopolitical need for speed? Should Ukraine join first and then gradually expand its membership rights when it meets all criteria? Or should it follow the regular accession procedures and first be granted associate or nominated member state status with limited representative rights, as suggested in the scene-setting report published ahead of this conference? How would all of this impact the notion of EU membership? And what precedent would it create for other candidate countries, especially those that also suffer from unresolved disputes? And for countries in the High North that might reheat their frozen accession ambitions. What is certain is that the EU needs to prepare its policies and governance structures for enlargement and overcome dysfunctional impediments to accession, like individual veto blockages for reasons unconnected to the EU acquis. And what's more, hearts and minds need to be won in member states to support the ratification of the upcoming treaties of accession, and this at a time when political headwinds are picking up. These are some of the existential questions that our political class will not just have to find answers to, but act upon. The 2026 edition of the EU Enlargement Conference in Tallinn provides an opportunity to exchange ideas on how to do so. Together with Tuli Pärntsalu, Airi Alakaivi and Celia Kuningas of the Estonian MFA, we at ICDS have developed a rich program with a stellar cast of speakers. The times are calling on all of us to speak plainly and openly, so I encourage all of you to do so. I would be remiss not to use the opportunity to warmly thank our partners for their generous support, the permanent representation of the European Commission, the Cyprus presidency of the Council through its embassy to Finland and Estonia, and our long-standing partner, the Embassy of Sweden in Tallinn. We will hear from Commissioner Kos and representatives of other partner institutions later, but I would first like to invite the Estonian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Margus Tsahkna, to offer his opening remarks. Minister, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for these opening remarks, and also Marta, thank you very much for coming here as well. Our friends, Deputy Prime Minister from Ukraine, Deputy Prime Minister from Hungary, as well. I see our friends from Montenegro and many other countries, and all the ambassadors. This enlargement conference is already like annual event. But I'm not very good diplomat, and I have a speech here. I'm not going to hold that We are always discussing how to enlarge Europe and how important it is. And from Estonian perspective, it has been our existential policy, because we once got in, and for us it was not the economical project, it was a project about our security or our existential matters. And I can honestly say that without EU and also NATO membership, we couldn't come together here today. I can say 99% assurance that we would have been occupied for this time by Russia, not by other countries. So, and this is real life. And now we're talking already years about EU enlargement again, which is a very good thing, because there was a pretty long break about that. And the main reason is not because we have an idea, sorry to say, about the great Europe, but because we are on defensive position. And defensive position because of Russia. Russia is still an aggressive country. Putin is an aggressor. And we knew it already years ago, and we somehow expected as well this gray eras or neutrality policy amongst the Russian neighboring countries. But we see as well that this is a green light for further aggression, and not only about Georgia, not only about Ukraine, what started 2014, militarily, and 22 again with all the atrocities, what is ongoingly now. But this is like the political aggressor as well. It's not only military. So our interest is actually must be not only to have the European Union as a safe club where we now belong as well in, and we are very happy about this. But actually we should and must have the vision about the Europe. Europe which can hold and guarantee the peace in our continent. Europe which has capability geopolitically to act as an independent player. Europe which has resources for economical development, who is innovative. And for that, actually, we need to think that whether these methodologies, what we have adopted already years ago and agreed more precisely 2020, are they based for enlargement, or actually they are actually for that we are never enlarged in real life? I think that can be as well the question in this conference today. And we are talking about the peace in Ukraine. We are talking about the talks, and Ukraine is under heavy pressure on all different sides. And we also talking about the full membership already, if you talk about the 20-point plan, like 1st of January 27. I think that politically there are many countries, Estonia as well, we're supporting that. But my question is whether Europe technically is able to do it, and probably not. But more important is that we can find lots of lawyers who can say, how can we not do the things? But we definitely find as well in Commission the lawyers who can say that how can we do it, but if we have a political will. And I think that our job is, as a politicians, to gather, to understand our responsibilities as well for the future. Because European membership for Ukraine, as well as a part of security guarantee for Europe, we need to understand that there's gray eras or this kind of buffer zones. I hate the word because for us as well, it has been used before that the Baltic states are somehow like a buffer zone between Europe and Russia. This is very dangerous path. We need to understand that there won't be any kind of buffer zones in the future, because we need to take responsibilities for the peace in real life as well in Europe, and the European Union must take it. So we can find the legal ways, how can we manage the processes. Of course, the principles, of course, the criteria must be there, because Europe must work as a one team, finally. But on political level, we need to find this courage and also responsibilities amongst our people, that Europe must be strong, Europe must be able to play on geopolitical level. And that's why it is so important that we find a way within maybe a couple of months how to deliver these promises to not only these nations who are really working hard, as Ukrainians, Moldovians, Montenegro, Albania, many others, but also for our people, And it's not only about to help these people, these nations. It's about us, actually. It's about Europe, strong Europe, and we must be committed on this vision. So I'm not going to be long. once again very grateful for all these candidate nations and governments who are really doing reforms. We have a couple of them here now today, and especially great. It's amazing what Ukraine is doing at the same time when they are at war. I remember when we entered 7 years negotiations in a peacetime for a small nation as 1.3 million people, and it was hard. But now, in these conditions, I'm sure that first we need to understand what kind of Europe we want to have in the future, what kind of responsibilities we in real life have, and the second, we can then find a way how to deal with that. And also, I call on all the candidate member state governments to take seriously all these criteria, all these different topics and negotiations, because finally we live in one family. And then you can imagine there is no time anymore to discuss about practicalities. So thank you again, and I wish you fruitful discussions. It's a very bad word, but not only fruitful, but let's find a way how to make Europe great again. Thank you.
Margus. I see I have some allies here in what I do. Thank you, dear Margus. Let's make us Europe great again, and let's talk about what is already good in our great Europe. 96 points out of 100 in Freedom House's world ranking. Second in the 2025 World Press Freedom Index, and leading the European Union in digital public services. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Estonia in 2026. Estonia is one of the greatest success stories of EU enlargement. It is really a great privilege for me to be here among you. Estonia seized the opportunity with both hands, put in the hard work, and transformed into a stable and prosperous European nation. 20 years of membership brought you from 50% of the average European GDP in 2004 to more than 90% today. At times when some doubt, it is also a reminder of the unmatched success of Europe's economic model of integration. Estonia's success is an example to our future member states. Your example is one of our strongest weapons in our fight against anti-EU propaganda, and there is currently plenty of that coming, not just from the East, but also from the West. When I travel to candidate countries and across our neighborhood, where we have stepped up our efforts to counter Russian narratives and interference, what I need to bring with me is the good examples we have for them to follow. Estonia and the Baltic countries provide that. When I was visiting Moldova, together with Deputy Prime Minister Cristina Gherasimova, I was often told, you remember, dear Cristina, that a small nation like Moldova would undoubtedly lose its autonomy in an EU of 450 million people, that European financial assistance would make Moldova dependent on foreigners, that the EU is a direct threat or ruining Moldova's identity. We have studied Russian narratives really carefully. All of these false fears are cynical nonsense, aggressively planted by the Kremlin's propaganda factories. Gladly, these fears are easily dispelled by Estonians' success. The Baltics show how those who left the Russian orbit and choose Europe have also left poverty and insecurity behind. Enlargement today remains that very promise, a promise that we can repeat this success, and this is precisely what Moscow is fearing. Because today we are determined to apply the recipe for economic and democratic success in Ukraine, in the Western Balkans, and of course in Moldova. The war in Ukraine and the daily acts of Russian state terrorism, there is no other word to describe Moscow's attempts to freeze millions of innocent civilians to death, only strengthen our determination, dear Taras, to turn your country into a resounding economic and democratic success. Russia wants darkness, EU delivers light. Russia wants fear, Europe is delivering solidarity. Russia wants Ukrainian children to forget their identity. We are bringing hope. And Russia wants deconstruction. We are bringing construction of new Ukraine. This is what Europe is doing today in Ukraine. Our past successes has three main ingredients: provide security, enact reforms, and attract investment. First, in 2004, EU enlargement went hand in hand with the expansion of NATO, which underpinned security and provided confidence for businesses that their investments were safe. Going forward, this security element will need a much stronger European contribution today. We are already moving in this direction with our efforts to rebuild European defense and with the security guarantees set out by the Coalition of the Willing in Paris earlier this year. Second are structural reforms. This is precisely what the EU accession process is all about and why there can be no shortcuts to these negotiations. We are working with our candidate countries to create strong democratic institutions guaranteeing the rule of law, particularly the independence of judiciary, fighting corruption, and anchoring media freedom, to create an environment where individuals and businesses can prosper. Third, investments. Last month in Davos, together with Taras, we had a great discussion on Ukraine's post-war prosperity, together with Mike Pyle of BlackRock, which was one of the negotiations on the prosperity paper. He said, and I quote, "The 2004 enlargement is a powerful reminder of what becomes possible when the right conditions are in place. It's hard to imagine a stronger signal to investors in Europe and globally than a credible EU accession reform process." And this is what we are replicating as we speak here today. To do that, we need to look at the lessons from 2004 and 2007 enlargement rounds, but also at what has fundamentally changed. The enlargement of 2004 and 2007 led to a new era of stability for our continent and an impressive level of economic convergence. But it also created doubts about our ability to enforce respect for our fundamental democratic principles. These doubts impact the public support required for our member states to pursue enlargement. Only a few years ago, overall public support for enlargement across our member states stood at 37%. Today, because of the war in Ukraine, it has risen to 56%. This is a big jump. Yet, this increase masks significant differences across our union. The geopolitical changes we are living through have made the environment in which we pursue enlargement far more hostile. This directly impacts the ability of our candidate countries to pursue sometimes difficult reforms, because some reforms come with short-term political costs. We face a growing tension between the time which is needed to apply a credible merits-based approach and growing pressure from external players on our candidates, pressure intended to raise the political cost of moving forward on their EU path. In short, our enlargement model requires time, stability, and gradual reform. But today's geopolitical environment is unstable and often coercive. The status quo is increasingly unfit to match this reality. We have come to a point where a frank debate is needed to provide answers to a central question: How can we implement our ingredients of success in a world that bears little comparison to the times of 2004 and 2007? I see 5 crucial elements. First, no shortcuts on reforms. Fighting corruption and building democratic institutions remain the foundation of EU enlargement. Full EU membership can never come at the detriment of those fundamental reforms. Only a credible reform path can underpin trust with EU member states and citizens and ensure the proper functioning of the internal market and our union as a whole. And without such trust, it is a soft category, EU enlargement can never be a success. Second, no Trojan horses. We need an insurance policy against backward steps. A lesson learned from 2004 is that we need to have safeguards that ensure new members stick to the rules and the integrity of our union is assured even 5, 10, 20 years down the line. And this is the major concern for many in Europe. If we can't provide credible answers to that, we will fall short of the public support needed for enlargement. This is why I plead that the next accession treaties should contain stronger safeguards against backsliding on commitments made during the accession negotiations to ensure that the new member states continue to maintain their track record on the fundamentals. With Montenegro closing all chapters at the end of this year, its accession treaty should be the first of a new generation. Any safeguard should remain in place for as long as necessary. But our treaties are clear. They should not create two-tier membership for countries that are fully aligned with the acquis. Simply put, if new members respect the rules, they will not even notice those safeguards. But if countries go backwards on our fundamentals, such as democracy and rule of law, these safeguards must bite hard. We plan to send a proposal to the Council for member states to take this decision forward. Third, the EU needs to get ready for new members. The accession of new member states in the coming years is a realistic perspective. We need to get ready. We need to know what the impact of future enlargement will be on key policy areas, our budget and our governance structures. Our citizens ask what enlargement means for them, for their model of social protection, and how will it affect our democratic principles and the rule of law. We are currently working on these assessments so we make sure that a union of more than 30 countries will be credible and effective to deliver to all our citizens across the EU. Fourth, we need to reach our future citizens much faster. We are faced with external powers that want to disrupt and destabilize Europe, and we see domestic movements in our candidate countries that wrongly paint the enlargement process as a dead end. In such a world, we need to reach citizens in our candidate countries much faster and more directly by rewarding those who deliver on reforms and alignment with the EU rules, with faster integration into EU policies and structures. This is what we are already doing with the integration into our Euro payment area, SEPA, or our free roaming area, which since the beginning of the year has been extended to Ukraine and Moldova. And your citizens did notice it, aren't they, Cristina and Taras? We are now proposing to our member states to do the same for the 6 countries of the Western Balkans. But we need to go much further and bring direct benefits to citizens and businesses in our candidate countries in energy, security, and the internal market. And this brings me to my final 5th point. Are we ready for peace? We all want a speedy end to the horrific war in Ukraine and reach a just and sustainable peace. While we cannot prejudge the outcome of the ongoing peace negotiations, we know it will create a new reality in Europe as a whole. This begs important questions to all of us here. Are we ready to do what such a new reality will require? Are we ready for peace in Europe? It will raise pressing questions about how we integrate the candidate countries with which we are currently negotiating. In these discussions, the integration of Ukraine in the EU, against the backdrop of the implementation of a peace agreement and possibly far-reaching security guarantees, will undoubtedly bring new impulses. When that happens, we need to be ready to bridge the need for time to fully implement those fundamental reforms and the need to act decisively to make peace in Ukraine and Europe sustainable. We need to consider a new path without cutting corners, on par with the changing realities in Europe. You may well have seen different models being floated by different European leaders in recent weeks and months. I'm glad to see that this debate is picking up. Let's have this discussion, but with one baseline. Full membership comes only after full reforms. Ladies and gentlemen, I see these 5 elements central to our debate on the future of EU enlargement. Today, we are going back to the same fundamental challenge the founders of our union faced: to preserve peace, freedom, and prosperity in Europe. All Europeans need to stand together. The principle stands. The way to do so must evolve with time, just as it did every time we faced big geopolitical changes in Europe. In the 1980s, when we answered the call of democratic voices in Greece, Spain, and Portugal, or in the early 2000s, when we brought in the countries of Central and Eastern Europe for the first time from ex-communist regimes. I'm confident that we will again rise to the occasion and do what is necessary to make peace permanent and build, as coined by the President von der Leyen, an independent Europe in control, in full control of its own future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll continue now with our first panel. So I'll ask Commissioner to come back to the stage along with the other panelists, please. We'll start with the Commissioner there. Cristina, if you would come here. Where is Taras? I cannot. I think we've lost one panelist. Anyway, Ivan, please come here. Jonatan, I'll have you here. And then I guess we're going to start without the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine for the time being. Hello, my name is Helga Kalm. I'm the Deputy Director here at ICDS, the International Center for Defense and Security. And I have the great pleasure and honor to moderate our first discussion today. We will be looking at matching the need for speed and the merits-based approach. A lot what the Commissioner already touched upon in her keynote remarks. So we're going to look at why is it that 2013 was the last year that the EU enlarged, and how can we move this process forward and bring these wonderful countries into the mix as we go ahead. So we have a wonderful panel here, starting with European Commissioner for Enlargement, Marta, the Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, Taras Kachka, the Deputy Prime Minister and Chief Negotiator of Moldova, Cristina Gherasimov, the Deputy Minister for EU Affairs of Montenegro, Ivanišević. I hope I pronounce it correctly. Excellent. Thank you. And finally, Secretary General of the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Jonatan Vseviov. Thank you very much for being here with us today. And thank you very much for the keynote remarks. It was very enlightening and leads us very well into the discussion. And I think when we think of enlargement, the country number one that everybody, at least here in Estonia, is talking about is, of course, Ukraine. And how do we support Ukraine in this process ahead. So coming to Deputy Prime Minister, if we hear everybody speaks about the negotiations going on between Ukraine and Russia, helped and aided by the Americans. So could you give us maybe an insight into what is going on in that process and how the EU enlargement and potential membership of Ukraine in the EU, and what role is that playing in those negotiations, if any?
So first, I think that this is like very difficult to call negotiations. So that's so we have several moments of trilateral talks this year, but mostly these negotiations are with our US partners and EU partners as well. So that and when, for example, we have. So that's why the security guarantees or prosperity plan, as mentioned by Commissioner Kos, that are more successful, yes, or more developed. And of course, this is not a secret. So that one of the cornerstones of long-lasting peace in our position, but also like shared by many, is accession to the European Union. So that's this is like a geopolitical reality that unfortunately, so Russian aggression is going beyond the, let's say, local bilateral conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So this is really like spillover of aggression from Russia to the rest of the world. So that's why we need to be united. We need to be very clear. And as my understanding is that we share this goal. So that's the only nuance is how to let's say, design or draft it properly. Yes, so just to highlight that we are serious about timing, that we are conscious what it will require, that this is not a shortcut to merit-based enlargement, and all other things that we are discussing. So that we are discussing it like very, very frankly. It is like still on the stage of political brainstorm how to do this in Brussels and in Kiev and in many other places like Munich security conference these days. So I hope that soon we will have a very clear understanding on how it will be designed and drafted, and then I hope it will also help to find a peace solution for Ukraine.
All right, but would you say that EU membership for you would be also a part of the security guarantees, or?
Yeah, so that we have two elements here. So first and foremost, I think that for us, the EU accession is for all candidate states. Yeah, so that this is like a certified transformation to the prosperous states. Like we all know what it is about, yeah, to join the European Union. So that's why we are we are not in a different position from Moldova or North Macedonia or Montenegro or Albania, yes, or anyone. So that's for clear. So that unfortunately, the circumstances we have, geopolitical circumstances we have, require all of us to look on enlargement from different perspective. For us and for Moldova, definitely. So that's also a solution, like a geopolitical shield, so that we need to be united with the European Union because Russia is very aggressive on our two states. Yes. So what let's say happened in a parliamentary campaign in Moldova, what's going on every day in Ukraine. So these are clear signs that Russia is fighting for its influence. That's why for us, enlargement is geopolitically important, and it is as well important for the European Union to show the unity, and that's why the enlargement now is a very important geopolitical tool for all candidates, not only for Ukraine. So this 20 points is one particular element, but for all candidate states, I think that this enlargement process is a merit-based, but now also geopolitical one. So that's why for all of us, it is important to complete this exercise as soon as possible. This is, of course, you know that regatta was always mentioned, yeah, for Estonia and for Baltic states, and for this big enlargement of 2004, it was regatta. Now we can also have this Marx, and who is like Formula One, yeah, who is Max Verstappen in our group. But a part of it, I think that there is a common interest for all of us, for the EU, for member states, and for every candidate state to complete this enlargement as soon as possible for geopolitical reasons as well. So this is additional element. It's not a replacement, but additional element to the enlargement universe as we know it.
Definitely, and having gone through the process in Estonia, it's a long and winding road. So good luck with the formula. Now, coming to Moldova, your wonderful neighbors, there's been some talk about fast-tracking Ukraine given the geopolitical conditions. How does that resonate in Moldova, especially given that in the process so far, you've often been coupled with Ukraine as two countries on the same kind of stage of membership negotiations?
I think the clear answer is, of course, Moldova is supporting a fast-tracking accession for Ukraine. I think the Ukrainians are demonstrating, not for the last 4 years, but for the last at least a decade, that they are choosing Europe every day, and they're not doing this only for themselves on the front line. I think Moldova is a clear country that would not be enjoying the luxury we are today to work on EU accession if it wasn't for the resilience that the Ukrainians are putting on the front line, but it's also a shield for the entire European Union. The question is whether the European Union is ready for a fast-track accession of Ukraine. And here I think this is the logic where we need to work on how can we make it happen. So from this perspective, I think it's in everyone's interest to win this race against the clock and to bring the candidate countries, and first and foremost Ukraine, of course, into the EU, because this is only going to strengthen and consolidate the security in the region, the security on the continent, but also consolidate and unify the EU as such.
Yeah, I think in the EU we need the positive signal of having at least one new member state join soon enough, but otherwise the process has a little bit of a taste of despair around it. But how ready is Moldova for the process? You're a small country with a tiny population. I remember from the time I visited Moldova, a lot of people were struggling, that your public sector is struggling to keep people employed. As a tiny country, how do you think you'll manage the entire reform process internally? How ready are you to take on the challenge?
We've really taken advantage of the last 4 or 5 years in terms of the reforms that we are undertaken. We have undergone an exceptional start of a very complex reform in the judiciary. If you remember, Moldova 6-7 years ago was a captured state full of corrupt judges and prosecutors. This is the core, the backbone of the rule of law reform in Moldova. We are in the midst of it, and we are very much determined to bring it to a successful end, but it's an extremely difficult one. We are having, of course, a key priority to make sure that our economy gets back on its feet. It's extremely difficult to do so because it has been very much affected since COVID onwards by the multiple crises that we've been experiencing. There, of course, we've taken this as an opportunity rather than as a challenge. We've worked a lot to consolidate our energy security, our energy resilience, and I think we've overall strengthened a lot our state and our public administration in the previous couple of years. And I think the beauty for us is that we can continue with the track of these reforms in the next 4 years. The Moldovans have chosen continuity of what we've started 4 or 5 years ago, and we are very much determined to use this political momentum at home to prepare as much as we can for the date of accession. Again, it's really critical for us. There is a sense of urgency to do as much as we can on our side in these 4 years, as we have a majority in parliament and a very strong support on behalf of our society. So these 4 years will be about continuation of reforms, be it a rule of law, be it economy, or the security side of the reforms. Moldova is is geographically located in an area where we have never really invested, even if we had to, in our security, in our defense. But I think the unprecedented character of the challenges that we are exposed at has changed that understanding that we need to immediately start investing in our security sector, and together with partners, European institutions, but also individual member states and beyond, we are strengthening our capabilities to be able to defend ourselves still. Moldova is a small country. We're not a EU member state. We do not have the NATO umbrella. We don't have any kind of security guarantees. And from this perspective, for us, accession is our only way to preserve our sovereignty and to consolidate our democracy. This is our goal, and this is what we're working towards.
Before moving on, quick question here. What about Transnistria in this process?
Mm-hmm. The reintegration of the country and the integration of Moldova in the European Union are two separate tracks, even though they're parallel. And we are working on this because it's in our first and foremost interest to reintegrate the country before accession. It's not an easy process when you have Russian troops on your territory. I think everyone in this room knows it very well how it is. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there is no solution there as long as we've been working on our diplomatic channels for the last 3 decades to solve that issue. In terms of economic convergence, we're working already hard with the entering into force of the customs code last year. I think we slowly start strengthening the economic convergence of the left bank with the entire country, and we will continue doing so.
Okay, let's hope it works out. I'm coming to our front runner now, Montenegro. Congratulations, first of all, on being so close. And question on that, do you think you will be able to close all the remaining chapters in 2026, including the rule of law, to move on? How's the process going?
Well, thank you so much for these compliments, first of all. And it's always a pleasure when you hear positive things about your work. But what we have to secure, first of all, is that this sentiment of all, it's not becomes a lullaby for our politicians, but becomes a motivation to foster the work and to continue really with the activities which will bring us to the end of a very serious and very delicate work. What's trying to do since the renewal and independence, we will cherish this year 20 years of our independence. We are trying really to work hard and to say that we are really ready and decided to join the EU. The motivation is that this choice today is not only a political choice. It's a strategic priority for the country, which is going forward. And I'm completely convinced that when you hear the citizens, you see that the motivation to conclude negotiations by the end of the year would be an amazing success. The government and all citizens are enthusiastic about seeing this horizon finally arriving after years of work, after so many new approaches tested with Montenegro. And now, and I particularly liked the clarity and the firmity of the speech of the commissioner, saying us that yes, of course we are going on the path, but there will be accession treaty, there will be very concrete messages for your society, and there will be guarantees how to secure that the new country will really contribute the quality of the work and the quality of the strength of our European Union. We need it. And with activities you mentioned in the areas of rule of law, of fundamentals, these are the areas how we also strengthen our resilience. Because as you all know, in this region very well, we faced it all in the Balkans, in Montenegro particularly, 2016, the influence of Russia, and it's the way how to strengthen democratic capacities of the countries to secure that the European Union of tomorrow will be again capable of responding to such violent acts.
Thank you. And a quick question to that, because I was going to ask about the commissioner's speech, and thank you for the 5 points. I think those were very clear on what is going on. But how do you as a country, should you be joining, feel that if you have some kind of safeguards in place and some other previously joined member states don't have them, how would it make you feel that, let's say that there should be, I don't know, backsliding in some areas in Montenegro, that you would then get some repercussions to it, while members who have joined previously, let's say Hungary, don't have those. What kind of sentiments does that create for you? And sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's completely normal. And I liked very much the fact that Commissioner said, if you are working right with values, with concrete things, you will never feel it. And that's a fair point, because I'm convinced that my country in future will be the country who will be delivering. We need a change. I was hearing the Estonia's change since joining the EU, the data which we have today. It's a model how we should foster, how we should progress. Of course, on the internal, as I perceive it, it's on the internal level. It's also a safeguard for politicians. They know what are the standards below which they should not go, and that's an idea how to continue to waive different ties, you know. And I completely believe that the accession of Montenegro will be that, if I may use the parallel, sailor's knot, which will allow you to reinforce additional processes and additional enlargement paths.
Thank you for that very positive attitude, if I may say so. I know that there would be countries that could be a little more bitter around it, so I appreciate you as an official also seeing the positive in actually the prevention of backsliding potentially. But coming to Estonia and an existing member state, how ready are the member states for a reform within the Union to make us capable of having new members join?
We're ready.
But should we, let's say, something that has been talked about a lot is diminishing the areas where we have qualified majority voting.
Right.
Is that something we would be?
So look, first of all, thank you all for being here. This is certainly much better than Munich. You all made the right choice. QMV is obviously a big topic for small member states. Everybody knows Estonia's position. We're very, very keen on our veto rights. Not because we've ever abused our veto. No, this is a tool that gives us voice. And frankly, let's be honest, it hasn't been our voice that has blocked Europe on any matter. Certainly not on enlargement, but on any matter. I think we need to confront the elephant in the room. Helga, you mentioned the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is not the complexity of the decision-making process, nor is it reform pace in the candidate countries that have made enormous progress. The elephant in the room is one member state that has left the team and joined the opposing team. Unless we find a way to address that, and Commissioner hinted at that when she talked about the importance of finding or coming up with some sort of guardrails, some sort of safety mechanisms. Yes, it's easier to build those safety mechanisms with regard to countries that have not yet become member states. But I think we also need to be very, very frank and open with ourselves. Currently, backsliding, democratic backsliding, is not a problem in the candidate countries. To the contrary. The candidate countries are candidate countries, and they are represented on this stage because we assess with absolute certainty that their trajectory on the two things that matter to us, democracy and rule of law, and them being on our side when it comes to the greatest geopolitical challenge of our times, the war of aggression that Russia has unleashed, that their trajectory is the correct one. The problem is that there are some member states who are already in the Union whose trajectory is the opposite. And our inability as Europeans to deal with this problem will hinder progress, not just on enlargement, but on almost everything else that we do. This has to become a priority. It has to become a priority. It certainly is a priority for us, Estonians, but it has to become a priority for other member states at the top levels of our governments. Without this, nothing else will work. We may end up simplifying the decision-making process. We may get rid of, I was told that there are 95 unanimity requiring decisions before let's say Ukraine becomes a member state. I don't know if 95 is correct, but let's say it's in the ballpark. We may simplify the process and cut it down to 5. We may even cut it down to 1. But unless and until we handle the problem that actually hinders progress today, even that won't do us any good. So I think we need to start addressing the actual elephant. I'm afraid that it will take more than just this group here on the stage to successfully handle that problem.
So you're stopping me from asking you how to handle that problem.
Well, there are tools in the current treaties. I wish our founding fathers and mothers were a bit wiser. I wish Commissioner Kloss's recommendation had been around 2 decades ago or a decade ago, but it wasn't. I can't change the past, so we can only handle with or deal with the world as it is. Article 7 proceedings are there, enormously difficult to use. You pretty much require unanimity -1 to eventually make a decision on a member state that has demonstrated backsliding. Unanimity -1 is enormously difficult, and this is an understatement of British proportions. But I mean, I see no other alternative. It's either that, or it's a combination of internal, external pressures that convinces the one member state to change course, to change its trajectory, after which we can deal with the technicalities. But for as long as there is a strategic obstacle, I think dealing with technicalities won't really help us along.
All right, so let's all hope for better results in April, maybe. But one more question to a member state. While the overall support for enlargement has increased, it has decreased in Estonia, in fact, and we're surprisingly in the top 5 from the bottom, kind of, in member states supporting EU enlargement. It's not super bad. We're at 52% of the population supports EU enlargement, but below us there's France with the lowest, 42%, Czech Republic with 43%, Austria at 45%, and Germany at 49%, and then comes Estonia with 52%. What can we actually do within those member states? And here, I know you can't comment on France, but France is clearly the most problematic out of those, given that they put enlargement on a public vote. But how can we make enlargement more popular in member states?
So I wouldn't worry about Estonia. We're
Thank you. Thank you.
Anytime. We're Northerners. We're slow to warm up to new ideas. Back in 2003, I think, we had the referendum on joining the EU. Amongst the group that joined in 2004, we were the second least pro-European. Malta's results were even lower than ours. We were still solidly okay. We were 66%, but we were lowest amongst the bunch, with Malta as the exception. And now I think we're amongst the most pro-EU membership member states. So it takes time for us to warm up to new ideas. But I think fundamentally we have a framing problem here. And this drives Estonian dynamics, but it also, I'm fairly convinced, drives political dynamics in other member states. We look at enlargement as if it was something that we are doing for the benefit of candidate countries. Constantly we hear arguments on why joining the EU is good for the candidate countries. And don't get me wrong, it's good for the candidate countries. We heard the Commissioner talk about Estonia's example. Facts speak for themselves. But I think we also need to be honest with ourselves. Enlargement is the most successful strategic tool we have at our disposal in shaping our environment. Had the European Union not enlarged in 2004 and not brought on board the roughly 90 million Central and Eastern Europeans and left us as a gray zone on the map of Europe, would have been catastrophic for us, but we would have been significant enough to drag the rest of the continent down with us. Chaos, instability, war on our continent has emanated from those gray zone areas. Enlarging the zone of stability, security, prosperity that comes with EU membership is a strategic benefit not only for the candidate countries, but for us as well. So let me be absolutely clear, and I'll use Ukraine's example because Ukraine is a top priority for Estonia's foreign policy for obvious reasons, but it obviously applies to Moldova and other candidate countries, Montenegro as well. So when we express our unambiguous support for the territorial integrity of Ukraine, we're not only thinking about Ukraine's borders, we're talking about ours. When we express our unambiguous support for Ukraine's sovereignty, we're not only fighting for Ukraine's right to choose its own allies, we are defending our right to live freely here in Estonia. And when we work to advance Ukraine on its path to EU membership, we're not doing it out of altruism, out of good-hearted, desire to bring better future for Ukraine. That too, but primarily, we're working to advance Europe's interests and, as a result, Estonia's interests. So EU enlargement, we need to change the narrative, change the way we talk about this. Constantly, we hear of this enlargement being something that we give to the candidate countries. And looking at the world as it is today, with the economic difficulties, with the geopolitical uncertainty, it's natural for European citizens to have second thoughts about whether we have capacity to help others. But it's not about helping others. It's about helping ourselves and creating a Europe free from instability, war, and chaos that those gray areas have brought us. So this is about Europe, not about the candidate countries. And if you frame it as such, I'm absolutely convinced Estonian people will support enlargement. And I'm also fairly convinced that the other examples you brought of the other member states will be coming along.
Thank you. And let's hope that it will go that way. Commissioner, coming back to you now to circle back. Do you think we'll be able to overcome the most difficult country issue looking ahead?
Yes, of course. How can I answer differently? No, but it's good to listen to Mr. Vseviov speaking so positively about the power of the enlargement and rightly framing it. I think that we sometimes forget answering the question, why are we doing something? We are very good in sometimes what we do and how we do, but then we forget the big picture. Yes, the numbers for the, how citizens are supportive to the EU enlargement are different in different countries. But on the other hand, we also know from the service that more than 80% of citizens of Europe are expecting from the EU taking care about the security. And this is the right framing today. But actually, it is not new. I really love to quote Simone Weil from 1979, when she was having the first speech in the European Parliament. And she was saying, and I quote, that all the member states are confronted with three big challenges: the challenge of peace, the challenge of security, the challenge of freedom, and the challenge of prosperity. And she went on, and it is obvious that those challenges can only be met through the European dimension. And here we are again. Only that we, in the past enlargement, especially in our 2004, where we have been enthusiastic of becoming a member of the EU, we mostly were speaking about the prosperity part, because we took peace and freedom for granted. And what is happening today, we see it is not granted. And what we do with the enlargement process is really securing a peace and freedom and security in Europe. That's why answer to your question is, of course, yes. I don't know how. I don't have all the answers, but your minister was speaking about the political will. This enlargement methodology we use today is made for peaceful times, when there is enough time, when nothing is going on, when everything is great. But we live in the times which are the opposite. We have, for the first time, are we negotiating with a country at war. For the first time, we are negotiating with a country which has Russian soldiers on its territory. For the first time, we have disruptive forces from the outside who would like to see us fail as Europe. Not just, specific candidate countries. So we have to react to this. And yeah, I'm an optimist, you know, somehow if you look in the past, the biggest changes in the European Union have been happening when we have been in crisis. And Jean Monnet once really said it well. He said that the European Union is forged in crisis, and that the European Union will be actually the sum of the solutions we find to those crises. Let's say, in the 60s, we had problems with food, and the common agricultural policy was born. In the 80s, deep economic crisis, we got what we really see as most of the most precious elements today, a common single market. Then, you know, the problems with the financial and so on. COVID, we prove it. So, gosh, we will do this. I don't know how yet, but let's work together. And this is, thank you, Estonia, for your support, but we need EU27. So we all, you know, this is the huge responsibility of EU institutions and the member states. It cannot be status quo. Minister was saying Estonia needed 7 years. You know, Sweden was the most developed country when it applied for the EU membership. It needed 3 years. We in Slovenia, we needed 3 years and a half. You know, so we have to change something, and we will.
Thank you. And I must say, your idea of probationary periods is also very innovative in this regard.
No, you use the word probation, you know, it's no, but you know, you have to, no, it's not about the probation, it's really about the trust. And it is about, you know, what is really put down very good in the Article 4 of the European Treaty, and this is sincere cooperation. You know, if we once decided, and we decided, that Ukraine is a candidate country, then we should all work on supporting Ukraine and other candidates to become a member of the EU. So, you know, it is a kind of soft element, but sincere cooperation and working together. It's no problem if we have different opinions. You know, I would be worrying if we would be always having the same opinion. But let's talk. Unanimity, you know, decision-making system is there for decades. It worked because it was used, as you have also said, as a tool to express the concerns of the member states. The problem is when it is misused or being politicized, and this is what we have today.
Yes, thank you very much. And no, I meant it as a compliment that at least there's innovative thinking around how to move past certain issues. So I think that's very useful as well. So
thank you for naming this innovative. You know, my team knows I'm pushing them to think out of the box in the times when there is no box. And this is what we have to do.
That's what we need. And thank you very much. And now to open it up to the questions, please, I ask that you introduce yourself and your affiliation. And if your question is directed at somebody specific, please say so. But if it's to all, then let it be to all. But yeah, go ahead here in the front. I think we have microphones as well. One is headed your way.
Nice socks.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Heather Graby from Bruegel, economics think tank in Brussels. 20 years ago, I was working for one of your predecessors as Enlargement Commissioner, and I was running around trying to find acquis for the Balkans and for Turkey at that time on what exactly is rule of law, how to measure independence of the judiciary, how to define press freedom in order to develop a new, harder acquis in these fundamental areas, because it was so difficult to define this and to hold countries to standards. And it was actually the member states which were very reluctant to develop new acquis because they were afraid it would apply to them. I really wish we had succeeded in establishing more than just an export version of this. It is implicitly there in the standard set, but we're still grasping for Council of Europe here, Venice Commission there, international standards vaguely. How is it possible to develop a harder acquis in these areas? This is also a question for the Secretary General, because they would apply to current members. And my second quick question to the two of you is on the veto points. At Bruegel, we've done a calculation. It's nearly 150 veto points, in fact, that the current members have once you go into all of the procedural steps. Now, those procedural steps of things like having to have unanimous agreement in the Council, both for opening and closing the chapters, and also on all of the benchmarks, those were not there 20 years ago. They were introduced as purely procedural things for various reasons. There is no legal obligation for the Commission to ask the Council for unanimous agreement on each of those steps. They're simply things that have crept in as a matter of habit. Is it possible to take away that habit and reduce them to 5, as the Secretary General said? I think that's something that the Commission could propose. Very glad of your view.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the gentleman there. Yes. Yeah.
Hello, good morning. I'm Francesco Trevisan from the Italian Embassy here in Tallinn, and my question is very brief, but it's open to all the guests here. Do you see the Trump presidency as an opportunity for strengthening the European Union?
Did we all? Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Like, do you see the Trump presidency and the new way that the Trump presidency works with the European allies as an opportunity to strengthen our unity and our future?
Okay. Thank you. And then we'll go actually over there, to the gentleman with the exactly. Thank you.
Okay. Sébastien Maillard from the Jacques Delors Institute. I have two questions, one for the candidate countries and one for Commissioner Kos. For the candidate countries, one question about France that was mentioned as perhaps the most historically actually reluctant country on enlargement, although that may change. But what are your plans to convince the French MPs or the French citizens to, by the time you reach the accession treaty, to actually convince them that to support your membership? And to Commissioner Kos, you rightly said there is no full membership before full reform. So what can we perhaps imagine before full membership? What kind of institutional engagement could be possible for these candidate countries to already benefit from some kind of engagement inside the EU institutions? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll come back to the panel now. And since Commissioner Kos, you got a lot of questions, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. Regarding the methodology, yes, indeed. Based on the European Treaty, we only need two unanimity decisions, giving the status and at the end. And with the changing of methodology in 2020, the rest of 148 have been put inside, which is not the legal binding, but is a political agreement put into the negotiation framework. We have tried to introduce, and some member states have asked us to do this. We have been positive to introduce the QMV, but there was no political will on the sides of the member states yet. And then regarding what we could do in advance. So now we are doing out of the box with my team and in the broader sense now. What I was telling before, we have to find a way to bridge the gap between the demanding and long accession process or methodology, which is plus minus the same as it was 40 years back when, do we have somebody from Spain and Portugal here? When those countries have joined the EU in a different geopolitical situation. So we are thinking in many different ways. Of course, how to speed up. We have already been speeding up, really. A lot. For instance, we have done the fastest screening process with Ukraine and Moldova ever. So in less than 1 year, going through the whole acquis, meaning where the countries are aligned and what needs to be done. But of course, this is not enough. So there are many different possibilities. whatever we will suggest, we have to get in agreement with the member states. But it is clear, yes, it would have been better if we would have done this 20 years back, but you know, it's not too late to do this today. More I can't say today, but you have heard some of the ideas of the European leaders in the past weeks. So we are listening and we are developing our own ideas. How, you know, you have been asking how to measure. Oh, we do this very good. You know, the whole enlargement report, we have already started working. Today is what, for February 13 on the next enlargement report, which will we issue in November. And for every chapter and sub-chapters, we have numbers. So this is a technical process, and then we can say how much Ukraine, Moldova have been advancing. So this is really working well now. But you know, still, I want to mention one very important part when we speak about the accession process. Of course, the candidates have to fulfill all the criteria set by the European Union Commission. On the other hand, we have member states who bring in their issues. So this is the political dynamic. And yes, of course, Montenegro is already working in France. We are working in France too. We take concerns of your citizens very serious. So it is our task to tell the citizens that, for instance, Montenegro is not a danger. Entering the EU is not a danger. You know, it is 620,000 people. Sorry, you are really that small. No, I'm not. That you cannot be, yeah, you know, this is, that you cannot harm us. This is like Toulouse. This is like Vilnius, I think, has around, I don't know which Estonian city has 600,000.
None of us.
Okay. Meaning, no, but joke on the side, it will not...
Isn't that argument dangerous when Ukraine is about to join, because they are a lot bigger?
Not at all dangerous, because, you know, with the enlargement 2010, for instance, like Poland, you know how Poland has advanced and what kind of really, you know, important is it today. So, you know, this is really the beauty of the EU, that we are so different, bigger and smaller. You know, Slovenia is smaller than Moldova. You're a bit bigger, and so on. So this is the beauty of this process. No, but seriously, what we really have to do is change the narratives of how we do the enlargement or the accession process today.
All right. Coming to Montenegro, what are you doing to convince the French?
Je peux répondre en français?
Oui, allez-y.
No, jokes aside, as someone who I was working till recently in Paris, and I had the honor to represent my country in France for 6 years. I'll try to respond to you very concretely. With Commission, we developed a series of activities to promote Montenegrin membership and in general the enlargement process in France. So we are doing this in cooperation with the government, but not only. We are going also towards the French region and towards the cities. And what we try also to explain that we are not different, we are still Europeans, and we are delivering some concrete results. Besides of that, I had the honor to see many activities in Paris promoting the enlargement. And I'm afraid, I'm a big Francophile, and I'm afraid that from time to time, when there is a difficult decision to be taken, there are voices which use France as an excuse for you know, delaying some decisions. From time to time, yes, but you know, it's strategic dialogue, strategic cooperation in areas which are important for the French citizens. We are trying to approach them to bring our arguments there. As Commissioner said, we are bringing from time to time also the argument of our greatness in the process. But on the other hand, we are really convincing with our results in several segments. Rule of law, difficult questions in different clusters. We are promoting the fact that since the beginning of the negotiations, we are implementing fully the common foreign and security policies, including all sanctions, despite different financial impacts of these sanctions. And as I told you before, it's easy to speak about results when you're convinced that you're doing a good thing. For us, this is a strategic plan. There is no plan B, and we believe that by the end of the year, we'll secure the result. Finally, we are also trying, to do the small things. We have a French national coach of the handball team whenever we are playing. So there are some steps to be taken again, but I'm very positive.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Have Ukraine and Moldova already started their work? And then second question, to combine the Trump into the question as well, has Trump made European Union more attractive for you?
No, it was not about us. It was like, but the answer to your question is yes. So that, but then I think that I would rather avoid explanation why. Yeah, because it will be in any case used against us. Yeah, so that's true. So it changes a lot. So that, and I thought that the questions that we hear are actually avoid any possibility for sense of humor. But then you mentioned Toulouse, and I recall that even Lufthansa has a sense of humor, because their flight from Munich to Toulouse has a number 2222, so it's like 2222 to Toulouse. Yeah, so and it's so funny in Munich airport. Yeah, so that's and then it's true. Yeah, so that's so. And then on rule of law, I think that it's good that we have no acquis, because this is something so fundamental that I would rather have no instruction what democracy is or rule of law is. It's always like a very wise decision. So that's why what I don't like in methodology of Commission is an attempt to instrumentalize these things. Yeah, so that's I think but the demand is like to have figures, to have assessment, to have standards, but there is no worse thing for assessment of the quality of judiciary or prosecution as Council of Europe standards. This is the nightmare. I think that's why we need to have really opinion of wise men, of really things like judges of ECJ or judges from constitutional courts of member states, of more prominent scholars, but not bureaucratic standardization. So rule of law and democracy cannot be standardized. This is something very essential for us. That's why sometimes it's like the assessment could be controversial, that something what is good, like in case of Montenegro, could be bad in case of Ukraine because of circumstances. And we need to accept this as well. So that's why this is very deep discussion. And I think that we also have some problems because in Ukraine, we have this eternal debate about who has better knowledge about the highest European understanding of jurisprudence and rule of law, either government or our civil society. And the proper answer is that we both don't know, yes, so that we need people from outside to help us to understand this. So that's why it is so important, and I think we will have a lot of debates this year about rule of law and the progress. But since we need to have a better quality discussion in this area. And on France, I think that this is not, it should not be our task if we are going to explain to people in France or in Germany that why Ukraine is needed or Montenegro is needed. We will fail because that France, rustic France will say no because of agriculture, will say no because they don't think about globally. But if France is a leader of global world, is a member of G7, presidency of G7 this year, then it should be like a really very political messaging that we need this enlargement, generally enlargement with Ukraine, Moldova, and Montenegro, and everyone else. So that this is a matter of survival of Europe. So and that this is where I think that France is really good in terms of developing these big ideas. After all, the EU is also born in also like very French style entity. Yeah. So that's why I think that indeed this attempt to explain something like rational, like enlargement in current democratic the style of public debate is dangerous, because we went through this problem with referendum in the Netherlands 10 years ago, so in 2016, yes, on an association agreement. Association agreement is very technocratic, it's about like standards in agriculture, not about membership. But the Dutch society said no, yeah, because they have been afraid of Ukraine. Then we somehow resolve this problem. So that's why I think that we need to start to think that how we can actually go, let's say, beyond the classical debate or advertising candidate states in France or in Spain or in other states that are out of region that understands this, so that because our neighbors either create us problems or fully support us, yeah. So, but they have their opinion. So that's also a task for this year. And I think that I like your term probation, yeah. So that maybe it's not yours, yeah. So that
I took it from an article.
Okay. But you know, probation is like, you know, it's good for your image. It's like you're a bad guy, like a bad bunny, you know, that's someone attractive, yeah. So that's. Yeah, but beyond the jokes.
I like you. Getting very into the semantics, so I think we have very little time.
Yeah. So just to complete this, I think that what we are talking about is like fit in accession. So that I think that in assessment of Commission in enlargement report, Moldova and Ukraine and Montenegro and Albania are really advanced in accession talks. So that's why this is a question whether we are talking 2030 as a rational scenario or we are talking about 2027. So it's about like several years. So this is a very local discussion on how to meet the geopolitical reality and substantive progress on reform. So that's why this is not something like sensationally new. And just to complete all this, I think that we need to recall ourselves that for every enlargement, there was a geopolitical context. And that's why the enlargement was almost, let's say, technocratically dead when there was no geopolitical context. And now it revives because we have very tragic geopolitical context. But this is really why we have these instruments and why it should be applied here and now. Thank you.
Yes, let's hope we move on fast. Cristina, any comments?
Well, very shortly, I think the vote of any member state on a candidate's accession to the EU is a very complex constellation of factors, be it the electoral cycle, be it the concerns of the people at the moment or broadly, and of course the framework, the framing. And here I agree with the Commissioner that where we can jump in is the framing. How do we frame enlargement? So as candidate countries, I think there, you know, we can make our countries a bit better known. I know that for Ukraine it's not an issue, but for Moldova, for instance, sometimes I still meet people in European countries that are not very sure where Moldova is. So I think we can start. I think we can start with making ourselves better known and just to convey that message that look, we are a European country, we speak a European language that's already an official language of the EU, and that we share the same values. And I think all of these gradual integration programs and initiatives allow for that space to develop and help us be better known as a reliable future member state at one point. So from this perspective, I think each of us can work on the framing of it. On the question on whether we need an acquis for the rule of law or not, I think it's a double-edged sword here. I was very curious to hear the preliminary interim benchmarks, how they will be framed by the Commission for Moldova and Ukraine. And I have to say that I'm happy that they're not too technical and they're not too abstract, because every country has its own its own problems. And sometimes I feel that we are much more critical towards our own standards of what we want to see in the judiciary than what the Commission might be expecting from one aspect or another. But that is because it fits our own context, our own history with infringements of rule of law and so on. So here I think flexibility is welcome when it comes to the fundamentals.
Definitely, and I think as an EU citizen as well, the thing that we make most fun of around the EU is our bureaucracy. So the less bureaucratic we are, sometimes it's useful if not everything is spelled out. But I think that leaves us with the most difficult question. and Trump and the EU to Estonia, to the member state?
I had other plans. I wanted to say something else. But I think, you know, I'm not going to comment on any particular president, certainly not President Trump. By the way, I'm not sure whether this is Chatham House or not.
It's not. We're actually streamed, so yeah.
Furthermore, I will not be commenting. However, I think it's been said by some or perhaps even all of the panelists here today that the enlargement of the European Union is a geopolitical imperative. And I think what they mean by this, at least what I mean by this when I say this, is that the world is changing. It's changing. Foreign Minister Ivanišević said there's no plan B. There's no plan B for Europe either. And the reason why there's no plan B for Europe either is the geopolitical environment in which we live. Great power politics is back. It's not just about the United States, it's about the other big players around the world. Now the question for Europe is, what sort of a role do we foresee for us? Are we a player in this game? I think the majority of Europeans would say, yes, we want to be a player in this game. Why? Not because we have global aspirations necessarily, but because we want to determine our own fate here in Europe. And if we're not united, and if we're not strong, and if we're not standing on our own 2 feet, then we won't be able to do it. Because then it is us that will become the playing ground for the other big players. And we don't want that to happen. Don't get me wrong. We're strong allies of the United States. We want to be allies to the United States. We want to have good relations with other big players. We just signed the what I believe to be a historic trade deal with India, with Mercosur, of which both were, as Estonia, strong supporters. We want to have good relations with others, but we want to be a player. So just a few things I very briefly wanted to mention. It's funny how the benefit of the hindsight works. We're sitting here today, we're talking about enlargement, and it might seem as if everybody wanted Estonia to join the European Union. Let's be honest, that wasn't the case. Nobody wanted us in the European Union. We had to prove to others that we belonged to the European Union. Now, we did that by making politically not supporting us impossible. And for that to happen, you need to, you won't get away with meeting 100% of the criteria. You have to meet 110%. 120%. Not because of any specific other rule. Nobody wanted us. We wanted to make not supporting our membership impossible. So we strived to meet the 110%. We strived to be better than all the so-called old member states. Secondly, we had to turn the debate on enlargement from being a debate about Estonia to being a debate about Europe. What kind of Europe do we want? Where do we then draw the border of Europe? If not on Narva River, then where? Because as my colleague said, there's no plan B. You're either a part of this zone of rule of law and democracy, or you're part of something else. What? I don't need to define. Ukraine can tell you what the alternative is, because they have a front row seat to that alternative being delivered to them by missiles and cannon fire. And finally, on small and large enlargement, I just want to again reiterate how important it is for us to change the narrative. Small enlargement is good. Big enlargement is better, because enlargement is a good thing, not a bad thing. We shouldn't sell enlargement to Montenegro because Montenegro is small. Montenegro needs to come in, but Ukraine needs to come in, Moldova needs to come in. The bigger, the better. The big bang succeeded in 2004. Because we managed to turn the debate upside down. It wasn't a debate about Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania and others. It turned into a debate about Europe in Paris, in Berlin, and other European capitals. So I think that's what we need to accomplish today. It's succeeded in the past, so there's no reason for it to fail now. We can do it. I think we'll get it done.
That's a very positive. And then just because our time is up, I'll actually ask you all a final question. What year do you think we'll have the next member state joining?
Come on, I'm coming from the European Commission. I can't tell you the time.
But you had another comment, so I allow you for another comment and then come back to the rest for their prediction.
No, I have the best job possible. today, and I'm enthusiastic about the enlargement. So I really want to be a commissioner, bringing as many as possible countries into the European Union, not because of counting, but because I went through in my life living or growing up in a communist regime, and I really see the benefits for Europe and for my Slovenia. And, you know, we have for the first time the possibility to unify Europe. Never before. If we do it right, we have the possibility to have a united Europe and also independent Europe, which doesn't mean isolated Europe. And this is, you know, working on these projects, it's really something great.
Thank you very much. And let's give a round of applause to the panel. Thank you all for being with us. Those of you who had questions, feel free to come up to the people and ask. I'm sorry, we're just out of time, and I don't want Stephen to look at me with mean eyes. Oh, nee.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.